in volatility, tracking and trends. Justin Oertel is the founder and lead weather forecaster at the Weather Center of Manitoba and was born and raised and still to this day remains based in Brandon, Manitoba. Justin built the team and leads forecasting, storm chasing, and content creation for the province on his Facebook page that is now surpassed, and he just let me know, over 160,000 followers. That's amazing. With a strong passion for weather, photography, and local weather perspective, he has shaped the weather scene in Manitoba with a clear voice for accurate and true information when it comes to weather and climate. Welcome, Justin.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction, and I just want to thank Ag Days for having me this morning. This is definitely the biggest speaking event that I have done so far on this journey, but I'm glad to be here. So this morning we are talking about heat and volatility, the tracking of the trends. Just going to talk about my expectations or thoughts on the upcoming growing season, summer 2026. But before we get too far ahead of things, I really want to look back at where we've been this last fall, kind of the end of last summer, and then going into this winter to kind of add some context, because if I just let you know what I think this summer is going to bring without context, I don't think it's going to be as important as it could be with some background context. So to start that, we're going to look at the soil moisture that we currently have in the ground across southern Manitoba, and this is as of October 2025, because obviously they don't look at this during the winter because the ground is frozen. But the first map over here is our soil moisture, the available soil moisture throughout southern Manitoba. And I don't know if anybody's here from the Portage area or Steinbach. Raise your hand if you're here from there. Not really too many. But that area got hit with some very strong, severe thunderstorms toward the end of last summer. So that is why they are in over 250 millimeters of available soil moisture in that area. We had some training thunderstorms that just sat over that area and caused a lot of flooding. So that area is in good shape, I would say, going into this year, to say the least. But they may have a little bit too much moisture because as we look to the other map on the right side, we see our percentage of available water holding capacity, and that is 80 to 100% there through the Portage area, south through much of far southern Manitoba. So depending on how much snowfall and precipitation we get this winter, that area could be prone to some flooding this spring, and it could take longer to get into the fields to start growing your crops this spring into the early summer. But in contrast, across southwestern Manitoba, it's been a little bit drier, especially northeast of Brandon toward the west side of Lake Manitoba and into the Interlake region. That area will probably be able to get started a little bit sooner this growing season because they have, their soil has a lot more room for water to go into the soil there. So I thought that that is a good context to start off with during this presentation. And kind of going along the same lines as our previous slide, this is the drought monitor across Canada, and this was just updated at the end of last month. Previous to that, during November drought monitor, we had the Brandon Westman region was in a D2 severe drought, but because we've had, and we'll look at that the next slide, some ample snowfall during last month, Brandon is no longer in a severe drought, but there is severe drought still through eastern Manitoba, and then extending up definitely in northern Manitoba, where there was quite a bit of wildfire activity this last summer. So that's not what we want to see going into this summer. The wildfire situation could become a story again. But yeah, that's a good look at where we're at in terms of our drought monitor going into this summer. And so our precipitation anomalies so far this winter, you can see November was very dry across all of southern Manitoba. You can see that we were well below the average precipitation. But in contrast, December 2025, we had a very active Alberta Clipper track through northern Alberta, sweeping down through the southern prairies. So that was good in terms of helping some of those drought whether they're below average or above average. And then we also can look at things like the atmospheric pressure in that key region. And why does that matter? Well, it tends to move our jet stream either further north or further south. And for those who know anything about weather, the storm systems like to travel with the jet stream. So that can be key in terms of if we get more precipitation or less precipitation, if it's warmer or cooler. And then down here you can see our oceanic Nino index over, well, the last 75 years or so, from 1950 to 2025. You can see it's been up and down, but right at the end you can see we're into some La Nina weather conditions there. Not super strong. The last La Nina we had was a lot stronger, but still, that's why we've been experiencing some cooler weather this winter, and it's been a little bit wetter and fairly active. So yeah, our current ENSO phase, so the evolution from the start of 2024 to now the end of 2025, going into 2026, we had a pretty strong El Nino back at the start of 2024, but that quickly trended down to ENSO neutral at the end of 2024, going into early 2025, and then now we've cooled again and we're back into a little bit of a weak La Nina at the end of 2025, going into early 2026. And you can see again in that Nino 3.4 region in the ocean that it's blue. We've had sea surface temperature anomalies cooler than average, so that has created the La Nina there in the ocean and for us. But La Nina is fading, and it's expecting to be fading pretty quick here over the coming months ahead. This is the official NOAA ENSO probabilities that was issued this month, January 2026. And where are we right now? We're in this bar here, January, February, March. So our probabilities have shot up to be an ENSO neutral as we get into the next few months. But you can see we quickly step up into the probabilities of having El Nino, especially as we get from March, April, May into April, May, June, which is the start of our growing season. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on. And then our North American multi-model ensemble forecast, different models there, they're also showing that jump up like our NOAA ENSO probabilities into El Nino by probably around May or June-ish. And another model we look at is our CFSV2 climate model, and it's again showing where we are right now in December, January, La Nina conditions, and then we're shooting up into a possibility for El Nino as we get into the June, July, August period of 2026. And the maps on the far right really show that where we are currently, January, February, March 26. It's, you can see the blue there in the ocean. And as we go through time toward the summer, we see by June, July, August, we have a strong signal for an El Nino developing in the ocean. So we're going to talk about analog years. We're not talking about analog clocks. But what are analog years? So they're years that we look back on in history where the ENSO that we're expecting this summer is what had occurred in those previous years. So things like temperature, atmospheric pressure that closely match the current or the developing phase. And of course, these years are identified using the specific climate indices. In this case, we've been using the ONI, the Oceanic Nino Index. So our best match analog would be 2023, just a couple years ago. And you can see why, because in 2022, we had a strong La Nina, and then as we got into 2023, that faded pretty quick, and then by the growing season, April, May, June, July, we had El Nino starting to persist. And you can see that's on a similar trend to the map I just showed you here from NOAA, showing our ENSO probabilities as we get into the upcoming growing season. So why is it the best match? Well, because we were coming out of a weak La Nina in early 2023, and we quickly jumped into an El Nino. So it's that transition, very sharp transition, which is what we're expecting this year. So it's a good match. And that summer produced an active hail and severe weather season. So keep that in mind for maybe something that could happen this year. That's why the wildfire season was so bad in 2023 as well, if you remember. And our precipitation anomalies for the May to September period in 2023 was very dry across the southern prairies. So that is looking like a probability for this year. Severe weather occurrences for summer 2023, we had 8 tornadoes across Manitoba. We had a very strong one up by Lake Winnipeg, and some kind of minor tornadoes kind of between Brandon and Portage and down south through southern Manitoba. But overall, the precipitation was below normal. We did have some active periods where severe weather occurred. And again, the hail reports in summer 2023 were much higher than our running average. And we can see that on this chart here. Our severe weather occurrences from May to September in 2023. Let's just take June, for example. It was estimated to have about 8 to 12 severe weather days through the month of June in 2023, and our average is 4 to 7 in June, so it was above average. And up to the end of July 31st, there were 89 severe hail events logged, and the climate normal for that period is only 43. So it was a very notable hail year in 2023. And our secondary supporting analog is 1965. And you can see again, 1965, we were at La Nina, then transitioned to an El Nino. Again, going on what we're going to be probably seeing in 2026. But this is a secondary weighting analog because the climate was a lot different in 1965 than it is in 2023. The anomalies for our growing season in 65 looks way different. We see that the temperatures from May to September were a little cooler than average, especially through northern Manitoba, and we had a bit more precipitation. But on the next chart, if we only take the heat of the summer, June, July, August, it was warmer and drier. You can see that here. We had a good area of dry, or of warmer than normal temperatures, and it was also, again, you see that across southern Manitoba, that very large dry swath, which kind of lines up with what we're seeing more, or what we're expecting to see more in 2026. But yeah, 1965 was a lot different because there was a lot more sea ice up in northern Canada. And so when we had low pressure systems bringing cooler air down into the prairies, it was a lot stronger, those cold fronts. So that played a key role as well in keeping generally the prairies a little cooler in 65 versus 2023. And the severe weather occurrences in 1965, we don't have as much information because they didn't log data in 1965 as they do now in 2026. But there was some extensive hail damage from this news article I was able to find up in northern Manitoba, up between Landing Lake and Red Sucker Lake. So we know there was definitely some hail back in 1965. We just can't really quantify whether it would have been above or below the seasonal average for severe weather, again, because the records just weren't quite there. And then our final supporting analog is from 2006. Again, La Nina transitioning to an El Nino, but it took longer for El Nino to take hold. It didn't really start taking hold in 2006 till the August to October period, but it's still a good analog because it lines up with what we're expecting to see in 2026. And it's another reasonable modern era analog to look at versus, again, 1965. It was a little bit outdated, but 2006 also had an active prairie year for storms. And again, this lines up with a little more what we'd expect when we're going into an El Nino summer. A big area of warm air across much of Canada, and our precipitation again, we're keying in on southern Manitoba, drier than normal. But some good news, at least in 2006, that area where we're having drought across northern Manitoba was a little bit wetter, so we can hope that works out again for this year. And severe weather occurrences in summer 2006 was pretty frequent. We had 15 tornadoes across Manitoba. There was even a tornado logged up in Thompson. And 2006 was the infamous Gull Lake Twister as well, which ended up taking the life of someone. And there was golf ball sized hail with this storm as well. So 2006 was very active. We usually average 7 to 10 twisters per year, and we had 15 in 2006. So even though the overall summer was dry, like we're expecting this year, when those active periods come, they could be very volatile. So to wrap things up, in summary, I think that this summer we can expect the growing season, May, June, July, August, and September, to be slightly above average temperature-wise through southern Manitoba. Similar to the north, but across northern Manitoba, it may take the warmth a little longer to get there. June, July, August, well above average, about 1 to 2 degrees running average through likely province-wide is what I'm expecting. So when we say temperature 1 to 2 degrees above the average, that's like, if the temperature average is 23 degrees on any given day, you add 2 to that, so 25. But, it could be a pretty warm year in 2026. Our precipitation-wise, from now through April and May, it's probably going to be wetter than normal when we have a fading La Nina pattern. We've already seen a lot of blizzards shutting down highways lately. It's been a very active winter so far, and I do expect that to continue through April and May. But then May, June, July onward, the trend for drier conditions and ridging will come in, and warmth will build as well. And June, July, August, our summer storm season, it may be limited during the dry and heat periods, but with pattern breakdowns, we could expect periodic volatile, severe weather to come through. And this is just a weather model from, again, the North American Multimedia Ensemble. It has the output for June, July, August 2006, and it's showing that very strong heat signal through the prairies, much of the US and northern Canada, in fact, and then also a very key dry signal there through the northern US states into southern Canada and the prairies. So that's kind of lined up with, again, the expectation going into an El Nino summer. So that's not probably what a lot of us want to see, but again, when we look back at the start of the PowerPoint, we're showing our moisture levels, and we're not doing too bad to start the year off. So even though the summer could be drier, I still think it should be a good growing season ahead. And you can find us here on Facebook, X, or Instagram if you'd like to follow us, if you don't already. Some QR codes here, but that's the end of the presentation. We got some time for some questions too, so if you have any questions, get a mic up to you.
Pretty loud. I was the one that booed. I wasn't booing, I was booing the hail.
I did hear that, yeah.
Because in 2023, I did end up getting hail. Not appreciated. But I was curious, often we talk about hail paths, that once you're on a hail path, that kind of continues throughout the season. Is there any truth to that?
Not really. I mean, storms are pretty isolated in how they form, so the chance of you getting another strong, severe hailstorm that same season is probably pretty low. But there probably are regions across Manitoba that are more prone to hail, whether it be kind of Riding Mountain National Park area, a little bit higher elevation, because with hail, as the storm pushes the updraft pushes the water droplets up, the stronger the updraft you have, the bigger the hail can get, because the hail stones keep going up into the updraft. And then eventually the storm is not strong enough to keep those hailstones in the updraft, and then the hail falls down. And the lower you are in terms of your sea level, like where you are in terms of your height, it has a longer time to melt, right? It's like if you're higher up, the hail's going to be bigger because it's not going to melt as fast going to the surface. But yeah, to answer your question, I don't really think so, no.
Any more questions? We have lots of time for questions if you're,
Hi. At the very beginning, you said that 2025 fall soil moisture was quite good. But you also said that drought monitor actually quite high. How do you reconcile?
Just, sorry, repeat that again.
Yeah, we'll try again. At the beginning of the presentation, you talked about the 2025 fall soil moisture as being high. But then you talked about the drought monitoring as also being abnormally dry. So I don't know how you reconcile those two quite different observations.
Yeah, so referring to the drought monitor, I didn't find any data for northern Manitoba. You can see that we got soil moisture here in southern Manitoba. But I think it lines up pretty good because you can see across southeastern Manitoba we have a lot of moisture. But then looking at the drought monitor, there's no drought there south of Winnipeg into far southern Manitoba, southeastern Manitoba, and then also the Brandon area isn't in too much of a drought. You don't get into the drought until you get into the interlake region. And so if you look back at the soil moisture for the interlake region, you can see that it was drier. They did not have as much, 0 to 120 centimeter depth, 100 millimeters of available soil moisture through the interlake. So that lines up with why we have drought conditions starting through the interlake. And then you can also see that there's a lot more of a possibility for water to soak into the soil through the interlake because there's less than a 20% of holding capacity through the interlake. Meanwhile, across southern Manitoba, where there's no drought, the soil is very